Breaking details in George Anthony's disappearance and suicide threats. How deputies tracked Kaylee's grandfather down to a Daytona Beach motel room and what he was doing inside and the suicide notes he left behind. I'm Eric Weber. We've got a team of reporters covering every angle of the story since it broke around 1:30 this morning. Tony Pipitone digging into George Anthony's background, and we also have crews at the Anthony home as well as the motel room where Local 6 is taking you inside the place where George Anthony was found. Also at the jail where Casey was just told about the incident and her attorney just arrived. But first, let's get started with Jessica D'Onofrio at Halifax Medical Center where George Anthony is being evaluated. And Jessica, what do we know about his condition?
Well, Eric, George Anthony never actually harmed himself. However, it appears that last night he reached a breaking point.
Currently, he has been stabilized and he has been moved up to a room and admitted here at Halifax Health.
George Anthony is now resting inside one of these hospital rooms.
Right now, we're not commenting on any mental issues that he may or may not have. It's, what we can talk about is the fact that he is undergoing some medical evaluation.
Late last night, he sent his family some unsettling text messages.
Basically, he had text messaged family members that he wanted to end his life.
The Orange County Sheriff's Office was notified and traced his cell phone to an area in Daytona Beach. Officers there searched parking lots for his car and found it at the Hawaii Motel on Ridgewood Avenue. Daytona Beach Police Chief Michael Chitwood went to the scene himself.
I guess the word would be he was melancholy. He was very cooperative with myself and the officers that entered his hotel room. Everything we asked him to do, he did.
Officers found an unfinished suicide note in his car and possibly another. Local 6 has learned he used words like he wanted to be with Kaylee. George Anthony was not carrying a weapon and did not have any drugs with him, only a prescription for blood pressure medication. Chitwood personally escorted him to the hospital where he was psychiatrically evaluated overnight.
I think that's the perfect word. It's a sad story. It's sad for everybody involved.
Also found in George Anthony's motel room a 12-pack of beer with 4 beers remaining. Meanwhile, it is still unclear how long doctors plan to keep him here at Halifax Medical Center. Now I'd like to send it over to my colleague Lewis Bolden, who's live outside the Anthony family home in East Orange County. Lewis, is there any indication when the family plans to come visit George here at Halifax Medical Center?
Well, Jessica, according to the family's attorney, Brad Conway, Cindy Anthony will be going to visit her husband at some point. So far this afternoon, she has not left her home. A woman knocks on the front door of the Anthony's home on Hope Spring Drive but doesn't get an answer and eventually leaves a note. She is one of only a few people to come to the house where Cindy Anthony is after George Anthony was admitted into Halifax Medical Center after a suicide scare early Friday morning.
George has been through a lot. The entire Anthony family has been through a lot, and George is okay.
The Anthony's attorney, Brad Conway, spoke to the media in the wee hours of the morning after news broke that George Anthony had been Baker-acted. After George was taken to the hospital in Daytona Beach, his black Chevrolet HHR was driven back to the family home. The family's private investigator came to the home, as well as a member of the Kid Finders Network, all relieved that George is okay.
Relief all the way around, all the way, from the law enforcement officers to everybody that cares about this family.
Conway stated the obvious, saying the family has been under a tremendous amount of stress. Not only is their daughter facing murder charges for allegedly killing their granddaughter, they still have not been able to give Kaylee Marie a proper burial. Casey's defense team still has to examine those remains to defend Casey, but at this moment, their focus is on George.
Tremendously stressful on everybody, and it's now it's a little bit better.
Now, over the last several months, we have seen George Anthony's demeanor run the gamut, most of the time calm and cool, but sometimes exploding in anger. But considering everything this family has been through, perhaps that can be expected. Reporting live on Hope Spring Drive, I'm Lewis Bolden, Local 6.
All right, Lewis, thank you for that. The person at the center of today's developments, 57-year-old George Anthony, obviously a man investigative reporter Tony Pipitone has been looking into since this case broke all the way back in July. And Tony, You've done a lot of investigation here. What do we know about George's background?
Well, I've gone back to when he was in Ohio. He was a deputy sheriff in Trumbull County, Ohio, and that's when he met and married Cindy in the 1980s. And according to Cindy's brother, Cindy persuaded him to leave that job and join his family's car business. That did not go well, and they moved to their home on Hope Spring Drive in 1989, when Casey was 3 years old.
Family photos from those early years, obtained exclusively by Local 6, reveal the smiles one may find in any family photo album. Casey as a child, excited by Christmas. As a teen, all dressed up, perhaps for a prom. And moments in between, the picture of a happy family. But there were stresses behind the door of the house on Hope Spring Drive. Financial pressures, as Cindy worked as a registered nurse and George as a security guard. And stresses from their daughter Casey, who at age 18 became a pregnant high school dropout and concealed that pregnancy from friends and family until just a few months before her daughter Kaylee was born. It was around this time George fell victim to the Nigerian email scam, creating financial problems that led to a brief separation with Cindy in late 2005, around the time Casey abandoned her job at Universal Studios, but continued to tell family and friends she was working. George and Cindy reconciled, but the denial and conceit continued between Casey and her parents for years, culminating in the day last June when George Anthony says he last saw his daughter and granddaughter leave their house for the last time. By the time she was reported missing a month later, investigators believe, Kaylee's body had already been dumped by Casey around the corner from that family home, where her remains decomposed, even as George and Cindy launched a nationwide effort to find the girl they insisted was still alive.
And George Anthony publicly clung to that hope, despite him knowing Casey's car reeked of human decomposition, and he later admitted knowing Casey was lying about something. But with the indisputable truth now that Kaylee was murdered and the state's case honing in on his daughter as the killer, George Anthony wrote messages yesterday telling his family he did not want to go on anymore and that he wanted to be with Kaylee.
All right, Tony's been on this story since about 1:20 this morning. You got the call. We've been on the air throughout the day, obviously.
Yeah.
Started about 2 o'clock this morning. Great work, and he'll be here throughout the day, obviously keeping you abreast of the situation. Thank you, Tony. All right, Local 6 is the only station you take in you inside the motel room where George Anthony was found early this morning. We're talking about the Hawaii Motel on Ridgewood Avenue. You see on the map there, it's also US 1 there in Daytona Beach. J.R. Stone been on the scene there all morning long. Joins us now live from the motel there with a tour of the room where he was staying there, George was staying.
Well, that's exactly right, Eric. I can tell you when everyone was looking for George Anthony, he was here, room 106 at the Hawaii Motel. And as we go inside, you can see what it looks like a day later. A very clean room at that with the bed made. Even the bathroom is clean. The closet's clean, but I can tell you when the cleaning crew arrived, we looked into the refrigerator, and that's where we found alcoholic beverages. We looked on the bed, and that's where we found one of George Anthony's personal items. George Anthony, found at the Hawaii Motel. From the outside, you can't see much, so we went inside to the very room that George Anthony was staying in as dozens of people searched for him.
He was just like an ordinary guy, you know, on the room for the night.
George Anthony checked in late yesterday afternoon, but when we came in today, the bed sheets weren't even ruffled.
He didn't sleep inside the bed, no.
So what did he do? Reports of suicide notes in his car have surfaced, but they were found in the car, not inside this room. Inside this is what we found. Just feet from the door, there was a 12-pack of Miller Lite. All the bottles were gone, with the exception of 4 that were still in the fridge. It appears that George may have had several beers. Those cleaning the room also noticed something else.
Just, I think a couple of blankets, a blanket and a show or something like that, yeah that's it. Yeah.
One blanket to be exact, a soft brown one that still sat on the bed when we entered. But it's unclear if this was Casey's or little Kaylee's. Those working at the motel say their talks with George were quick. When he arrived, he asked for a pizza place in the area and said it was cold outside. They never would have guessed what was about to go down, but say they're glad George Anthony is okay.
I'm glad we got him in time before he did anything, you know, so that's the main thing.
And back out here in the hotel room where George Anthony was staying, I can tell you, we talked to people who are next door, were right next door when this all went down last night. They say they didn't hear a thing. And talking with those owners here at this motel, they said that George Anthony, when he came in, didn't seem upset about anything. He was very nice to talk with, they said. For now, reporting live in Daytona Beach, J.R. Stone, Local 6.
All right, J.R., thank you for that. Now, Casey Anthony's attorney, Jose Baez, just arrived at the Orange County Jail, but we have learned Casey already knows about her father's disappearance and suicide threats. A live report from the jail in just moments, and much more on these breaking developments just around the corner.